When people say that grading is a scam, what do you say to them? Today, I'm talking to Ken Black, COO of Collector Archive Services. We're going to ask him the fun questions, we're going to ask him the tough questions, and we're going to ask him the questions that you, the viewer, sent in. So without further ado, let's go. First off, let me just say that I reached out to you guys over at CAS, not directly to you, but they put me in contact with you because I have a million questions about grading. And as I came to find out, my viewers have a million questions, but as you'll hear later on. But I think that right now, before we get into the questions, for people who don't know you, let's hear your backstory and how you came to CAS.
Well, I mean, for the last 25, maybe close to 30 years, I've always been involved with buying and selling antiques, collectibles. Early 1995 eBay, was when I started right at the same time they did. That kind of pushed it off. I have a big background in cabinet making of all things, which got me into technology, database programming, AutoCAD design, engineering. That kind of was my that was my 90s era, probably, or into the early 2000s. It put me in a spot where I just always felt like I was an entrepreneur and didn't like working for somebody else, so buying, selling collectibles and merchandise online is something I got heavy into. As things progressed and grading started to come around and, all the other markets have started to become big, like with comic books and trading cards and stuff like that. Toys were still in its infancy and just starting to get graded and hit the market. And, just over the period of time that our competitor was, around, before us, they were the only game in town. And, it just kind of got to a point I was approached by a lot of people about, I wish there was another company. I wish there was some competition. I wish I had some choices. And, my one partner, Todd DiMartino, and I just kind of put our heads together and looked at what was out there, what was going on, what were the shortfalls, what could we improve, and kind of that's how CAS was born. We started up in Pennsylvania about 7 years ago, moved down to Florida 6 years ago, and have been here since. It's just been, it's been a steady increase in volume, a steady increase in the size, and the unique stuff that we get to see all the time. But it's something I just really like to do. I'm not a big collector of anything, and I like the historic part of this. Toys not only from my childhood but other people's childhoods. People always tell me their stories of why something's important to them, why they like it or why they're getting it graded. And there's a lot of people out there that do this more for sentimental reasons than you probably think. Toys they have, it not about value or flipping.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm into grading for the historical preservation. That's what I think the monetary value comes after the fact, and it's a great bonus. It is, but the preservation of these toys, I think, is what I'm into. So, taking a step back. So, how was CAS formed? Kind of like a backstory of who CAS is.
Well, like I said, we had gotten to the point that we had heard a lot of people talking about just the shortcomings of AFA at the time, and maybe not shortcomings, but that I'm sure they were overwhelmed. There was a lot of demand for the service. They were the only company doing it, so it created some issues with people and collectors, and we wanted to try and do something a little different and add a little more bang for the buck, I guess. Some of the features we do nobody else does.
Competition's always good. It makes everyone better, I think.
Yeah, it does. And we heard that from a lot of people. And it was so good to see their company come on the market, and people have some choices. And we certainly, we kind of innovated a lot of things along the way in our case designs. And, we got right into like laser technology with, cutting acrylic and doing custom clips and holders and stuff like that, where it was still kind of a manual, like panel saw, table saw, hand tool kind of setup, so, we just kind of jumped into modern technology, as much as we could. And that helped a lot. So my background with the database and stuff, helped me create an entire custom system for all our order processing, for all our internal, how we handle all the pieces, how everything is barcoded and labeled, and
and that came from your database experience and setting up the infrastructure pretty much.
Software out there on the shelf that you can just go pick off and says, grading software 2.0, so we kind of developed that. I developed that all along, and, have integrated all our processes. It ties directly to our website. It's our whole order management system and everything. It's all custom hand done, very specific to grading.
I know that one question, I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but it bleeds into this question. I know that there's 3 major grading companies out there, yourself and 2 others right now, I think, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a question that a viewer did ask is, do you guys talk to each other? Do you guys get together, or do you guys talk to each other about grading systems and how you grade? Is there like a unified, at least, language that you guys are speaking?
Well, for CAS, no, we have not spoken to either of the competitors in that kind of regard. I know there's some friendliness, between people, in different organizations, like toy shows and stuff like that. But, as far as, we'll call it trade secrets, kind of kept close to the vest, how our standards are, how we grade, what grades, So no, there's not really much interaction at all in between the 3 companies as far as I know. I know none from us. I can't say for the other 2, but.
Yeah. Okay. I think I think it's a fair question though to ask, like, just as industry standards, you guys get together, you guys like talk shop, but I think let's get into the majority of the customer or the viewer questions that we have, and there's quite a few of them. But so Brett M asks, how do they determine? I guess how does CAS determine how something is displayed once it's graded inside the case before it's archived and returned to the owner? So I guess that's more of like an acrylic. How do you decide how a figure is going to go in, and maybe you can talk about specialized figures?
Well, we kind of have standards on a lot of stuff, like a loose Motu piece is, figure, certain weapons to the left, certain weapons to the right. It kind of centers the figure into the case, and that carries through pretty much all loose toy figure lines. Know whether they have a comic book or a file card that goes with it. They're always placed to the right. If they have a coin, it goes to the right. That's pretty standard for us, again, across all toy lines. When you get those kind of setups and somebody says, hey, here's a 5x7 photo of me playing with this as a kid. Can you integrate that? So we take a little bit more time, see what's going to lay out the best, what's going to look the best, the most appealing. When you get into bigger things like vehicles and ships and more complex, it's kind of what fills the space in the case the best. They don't have large neutral areas of dead space, but still displays everything in a way that you can see it. It's uniform. Like for instance, we do all our vehicles and ships and stuff like that always on an angle, on like a 45 angle.
And that's cool.
A lot of times,
I think that's cool.
Tilted, like on the die-cast Star Wars, we put them on a little platform and tilt them, so you get like a 3/4 view of it versus just the front, hanging on the wall kind of thing. So it's, carded figures, box items, that's all pretty standard as well. But, the customs are kind of with the help of the customer's request, along with our way of doing things, we usually find a medium in there that works for everybody.
But some of your I've seen pictures of some of your custom stuff, especially when it's a figure that has a million pieces, like a Transformers playset or something like that. What you're talking about, those custom pieces, man. It's like there's a question later on asking about that, but some of those pieces are like it's like museum quality. I think it's cool. So at some point I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna ask like, hey, here's a picture of me playing with it, opening this up in 1983. Can you integrate that? I'm going to ask for that pretty soon. So it's coming. Brendan F asks, how many items do you grade a year?
Oh, geez. Let me see.
I guess last year, do you guys know a number? Because it was insane. It was insane. It seemed like everyone was grading last year.
Yeah. I mean, I again, it's just kind of a number we really don't put out, but I mean,
yeah.
I know, for instance, AFA, there's been articles that they've done, 400 or 500,000 items over their 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we're a little ahead of that pace in 6 years.
Wow.
You know, so
Wow.
yeah,
That's
you know, it's crazy. And you know, and post COVID is what it was. That's where it really boomed. I mean,
yeah.
it took off.
Yeah, I think you know, I think wait times were big on every platform. You know, your company as well as other companies. You know, it doesn't matter who you chose.
Yeah.
They were all backed up. Brendan F also has a follow-up question. If I want to grade an item, I have CAS and AFA to choose from. Why should I choose CAS over AFA?
Okay, so without sounding like I'm beating up on our competition, I mean, there are a few very key things that, you know, we offer that they don't, unfortunately. I bet if you ask anybody who knows both of us, they will tell you customer service for one. You know, we have a front office person, answers phone calls, returns phone calls, listens to every message, tries to return every single email within a timely fashion. People can call and check up on their order, call and ask about general questions on how to grade. I mean, and from what I know personally, that doesn't happen anywhere else. You know, so that's probably one of the big things that really separate us from any competition, really. You know, there's all these little bells and whistles, we call them, that go with our service. You know, every item grade gets photographed. Every item gets a certificate. Every item is uploaded back to the customer account. They can download the photos in a zip file to use for their own marketing purposes, you know, or selling on eBay or anything like that. You know, so it's just, those are some of the customer service related things that we put together in the beginning because it wasn't there, you know, and we didn't want to get into tons of upcharging and nickel and diming for all these little things. So we just incorporated it. That's probably the biggest stuff right there, you know.
Yeah. I mean, well, not to sound fanboy, because I don't want to sound like fanboy, but every time I go to a show like Celebration or I go to a toy con, I know you guys by first name basis now, just because when I'm there, you guys are there. I buy a toy, I talk to you guys, you know, grade it. So now it's like when I see you guys, this is the first time that we're meeting, Ken, but you know, like your employees or people who are at the cons, like I know them by first name basis. I'll say, hey, what do you think of this? You know, not should I grade this, but what do you think of it? Right. So we talk about it, and yeah, I think it's cool. And then when I do send something in, I get emailed back, you know, and they say, hey, Joey, like, you know, I know who's actually emailing me, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, not to say that I won't experience that with other companies, but right now I experience that with you guys, and I think that's cool.
We set it up to do that, you know, like a package comes into the building and it's just based on the name on the label, you know, the UPS label. We make a list of what came in that day and we send a courtesy email out that says, hey, your package is here.
That's cool.
You know, the next email is when we open it up, we check it into your account, you'll get an official, this item has been checked in email. You know, as we go through the process and it gets down to the end, you get an email that says your item's been graded. Shortly after that, your photos are in your account. Then you get your return shipping quote. And you know, again, so it's all part of that customer service experience. It's trying to keep the customers engaged, you know, as much as we can.
Yeah.
I know some people like a few more emails along the way, you know, that kind of thing. But you know, we just got to balance it a little bit and try to make as many people, you know, happy as we can.
Yeah, I think it's a good process. So let's get to another question. Daniel N asks, what devices are used to, this is a good one, I think. What devices are used to determine grades, such as microscopes, x-rays? Like, that's one I want to know. What's the nitty gritty of how you use things like tools?
I mean, it seems like it's super complex, but it's really not. I mean, there's a handful of tools, you know, black lighting, you know, for touch-ups and stuff like that is very common. All my processors and graders, you know, have like 30x loops, you know, light up loops like on their hands, you know, all day long. We're all little details. And there's about 5 of us that look at every single piece. I mean, it's a multi-check system. Mm-hmm. You know, the big ones that get a little more questionable, digital microscopes, USB microscopes that are, you know, 700x, 800x. You know, when somebody sends an unpainted factory error, and I throw it under the scope and I can see all the pores are filled with black paint, you know, to see that it's been stripped.
Yeah.
It's good lighting, good, you know, workbench areas, you know, places for the people to work in. It's more about that comfort than the technology. You know, and part of our reach, another thing that we we utilize is we have a board of advisors, so anything that comes in that we can't think of or we haven't seen, or, something seems fishy, we got the top guy in Motu, we got the top guy in Transformers, and by being able to reach out to them and get their opinions on stuff, really helps us as well. That's as big of a tool as anything electronic you can have, really.
Yeah, doing a follow-up on, you mentioned, going microscopic and looking at the pores. How often do you find, either beknownst to the collector or not, right? There's people who probably collect it that way thinking that it's authentic and they send it in to you. How often, you don't have to give a number, but how often do you see people sending in, this is a first shot, or this is a, prototype, and it's actually not. It's actually been manipulated.
Quite a bit, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, common ones are, people are, I think, sometimes just looking for that variant that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured that one hand's painted, one hand's not. Left hand unpainted, factory error, they're calling it. And I look under scope, and sure enough, all the paint's been scrubbed off. Nail polish remover, acetate, whatever chemical they've decided to use. And again, you're right. Sometimes the customer doesn't know, they buy it that way. So part of, when we get into like a refusal process with stuff like that, our refusal certificates stand up to eBay and PayPal. So if somebody bought that eBay as an unpainted whatever, it disclosed to them as that, and we determine it's not, they have something to help fight, to get their money back.
Yeah.
Now, sure, there's probably just as many people that, knowingly know something's not right and send it in, and,
well,
try to catch up.
Sometimes it puts that asterisk out there in the community saying, watch out for this, so it actually kind of helps collectors in a way, I think, when people do send in things like that, because when they get it back or report it, I would report it. At least I would tell the community, hey, I bought this, maybe the seller did or didn't know, but look out for this. At least it helped. I do read that a lot. So it kind of rolls into this next question. Dario M, I think this is a really good question. And this is partly due to a controversy in the collecting community right now over a bootleg and its authenticity. So what's the process like if a very, very rare item comes in that only 2 or 3 examples are known to exist in the world? I know that you said you reach out to experts, but how do you authenticate that rare piece?
Well, I mean, it basically starts off with our own internal research, looking at some of the other sites, knowing all the big collectors and all the groups, and seeing if other people have discussed it or seen it before, if it's shown up in Facebook groups. My ownership group, my other partners and I, between us, we have so much experience in this. I can always bounce stuff off of them, and they can say, oh yeah, I saw this on a group 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it still boils down to that board of advisors. Bootlegs in particular, I have a couple people that we reach out to that are, who everybody else reaches out to.
Yeah.
So I get stuff that's submitted, 1980s vintage bootleg, blah, 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 and then I reach out, I'm like, this looks like too new for that. Oh yeah, this was a find, 2006, so these are aftermarket copies of bootlegs, but we depend a lot on our own research and that board. That board of advisors is big for us.
I mean, it's a bootleg of a bootleg. That's like a true bootleg. If you're bootlegging bootlegs, come on.
Yeah.
There's a market for that. Come on, Ken. Come on. Start grading those. I'm just kidding. Do what you want. So let's move on. Rich M. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, just last thing on the bootlegs, is that you're right. There are bootlegs of bootlegs of bootlegs. But what we're seeing, what we don't grade, are the ones that were made last year, and mass produced in Mexico to look like the bootlegs, and now they're flooding the market. That's what we don't grade.
One question that came in late. Somebody asked, do you grade the new fan-made, let's just say, like the new fan-made reproductions of like a Snaggletooth and whatever, the ones that are coming out that are modern now from companies? Do you grade those as bootlegs, or do you grade those at all? Like, what's your thought process on that?
Well, there's a couple people in particular, a couple of those makers who, I'll say, in their past got caught trying to deceive people,
Mm-hmm.
making reproductions and passing them off as legitimate. So those makers in particular are ones we don't grade even now. There's a lot of cool guys out there that make some really neat stuff, and they're clearly, and we grade them as customs, and they're not meant to deceive. They're not meant to look like an exact replica of a vintage where a rookie collector, a new person to the hobby may get confused,
Mm-hmm. So anything that's fan made that is like, a custom that is in no line at all, it isn't trying to replicate anything, you will grade that. But
the last time I did a bunch of the elephant figures.
Oh yeah.
Familiar. So those are okay. We do those.
I actually have one of those, the Efont mod. Yeah. Okay, so that clears up for me, because I kind of did want to grade my Efont mod, but I didn't. I didn't know what your definition of a custom as opposed to a replication that's trying to look exactly like the authentic.
Probably 2, maybe 3 particular companies that we won't do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Yeah. That's good to know for me, and I know it's good to know for my viewers as well. So moving on to the next one, Rich M asks, why would you leave an opening or gap and not seal an acrylic case airtight?
Okay, so the reasoning behind that is it helps avoid condensation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where these pieces are going once they get back to a collector. Sometimes on a shelf in an air-conditioned, climate-controlled place, and they're fine. Sometimes in a storage bin in their backyard in the shed. Sealing it up allows condensation to build, which would ruin the toys over time.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call an air gap. That's why the bottom backs are never sealed. It's just enough it can breathe, it can expand and contract a little bit, and that's the way we do. If you sealed them, it's kind of like we'd have to seal them with argon gas inside, the same as you would do on a window.
Uh-huh.
Same principle, So the only way to do it is put some kind of inert gas inside there and then seal it shut to keep, the elements from affecting it later down the road. So it's just very practical.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until that question was asked, and I went back and looked at one of my acrylics, and I said, "Oh yeah, you're
all like that."
That's when I wanted to know too. So that's a good one.
In standard is like that. My 2 competitors all do the same thing.
So next question: if a figure of a certain country of origin isn't correctly paired with the correct accessory, let's say the Taiwan Luke Skywalker in the Jedi outfit, and if a collector's unsure if the green or the blue is paired, and they send in, let's just say randomly, all right, a green, how do you handle that? And if it's wrong, do you reject it? Like, will you grade that?
So the biggest thing we see all the time is the Boba Fett Imperial Blaster, and they always get sent in with the regular or the lighter blue Imperial Blaster, which only came with an Imperial Commander and IG-88.
Right.
So, I see that all the time. The minute it comes in, it's like, oh, blue blaster. So what we do is we reach out to every customer that does that. We reach out to them and say, hey, this requires the dark blue blaster, not the standard blue. Would you like to send the correct one in?
Mm-hmm.
And we give them, and if they say, no, I don't have one, then we do a 50% refund at that point. That's our second chance offer is what we call it. We still do the work. We still do the research. We still process it and everything. So, but most of the time people send in accessories, things like that, or if it's missing an accessory, like G.I. Joes, have half a dozen little things, they're missing one. So we'd like to give the collector the chance to do it. It's not all about like, hey, thank you for your money. Here's your piece back. We couldn't grade it. And we don't ever want to have to do that.
Yeah, that was a big question for me, because I know it's not your job to dispel controversy, but there's a lot of questions that people have pre-sending a figure in. Let's just take, for instance, very specific. I know this is very specific, but the Luke Skywalker Imperial Stormtrooper, right?
Yep.
With the black, solid black, but then now there have been some instances where people are finding carded ones with the blue black carded inside the figure. And, there's still a very strong stance of no, it's only solid black. So when you see that, will you grade a Luke Skywalker with a blue black? I guess what is a V4 down to V1?
As a loose, currently do not. And I've had this conversation with a bunch of collectors, and they told me the same thing. There's carded versions, and I have yet to see a carded version myself. And handling the 10,000 plus carded figures, and thousands of Luke Skywalker stormtroopers because it's so popular. I've yet to come across one.
Okay.
And I yet to see a picture of one that doesn't have a dark yellow bubble that you can say for sure, with a crystal clear bubble that you can make that determination. I've yet to see one, and I've asked customers to send me pictures or links, and nobody's been able to do that yet.
Okay.
I know that's
so that pretty much clears up the first question, is that as far as your knowledge goes, you have to make sure that whatever you're sending in has to match whatever is the carded examples that are known to exist right now. And,
yes, of course. I mean, that they're pretty easy to research and get. Now, we don't get to the detail level yet of, Smile Factory, Unitoy Factory goes with these particular figures, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But we're working on. So, that's coming down the pipe.
Okay.
But
okay. That is good to know. So, this next question is a question that comes from me because I really want to know this. So when a figure is bleached, or I know we got into this earlier on, we kind of touched on it, but when a figure is bleached, no matter with what chemical it is, it's peroxide, whatever, or it's touched up with paint, how can you tell, and how can you tell?
So the bleaching is something pretty new in the last few years, where it's becoming more prominent because there's YouTube videos on how to do it now.
Right.
It's hard to detect that. I mean, sometimes you get a piece in a stormtrooper and it is so white, like it would be invisible in the snow. You know what I mean? It's like perfect white, but then it's got like paint wear on the shoulders, and the backside's a little more yellow than the front side. So there's some little clues that we can pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as paint touch-up or ink touch-up, much easier to find that.
Okay.
And again, that's at 700-800x scope comes in, because to the naked eye, you don't see the minute little brush strokes, or you don't see the little brush hair that got stuck in the paint, or you can't see the subtle difference in the color where the overlap is, or you can't see the overlap at all,
Mm-hmm.
Until you really at it at a finite level, and we see a lot of that.
Okay.
Quite a bit. And whether the customer knows it's good or bad, who knows?
Yeah, that's a big thing, is that, if I was to buy something, because I don't bleach my figures, I don't touch up my figures, but if I'm buying something, even if it's inside a store, the owner may not know, or the seller may not know, hey, this has been touched up with chemicals, this has been touched up with paint. I know you can buy a black light and take a black light, and that's kind of like your single line of defense when you're buying things, especially with the higher end figures. I would honestly do that if I was a buyer. But online, you're at the mercy of what the seller tells you. So that's why I wanted to ask, like, is there, that's my main reason of asking, is like, your process of down to the chemical level. Can you detect chemicals like bleaching or peroxide or something like that? So that was really
the chemical, but definitely paint touch up and stuff like that. The most common figure of all time for us is Cobra Commander's, the silver mask.
Really?
And they come in all
for paint touch up?
Yep. Nice new paint on it. And then we refuse that. And I have 800x digital images of these faces. And then 3 months later, it shows back up because they sold it to somebody else at a high grade. And then we refuse it again. I had one Cobra Commander come through, I think, 4 times in a year.
Wow.
So you can bet those people were selling it without telling them it failed grading.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I had about 5 GI Joes when I was a kid, and that was one of them. And that was only because I don't know, you couldn't just buy that in the store. The Cobra Commander was a mail-in, right? Or something like that. Yeah, so I had to trade a really good Star Wars toy for that Cobra Commander. I wish I still had him. I don't, though. But yeah, that was if I do get a GI Joe, it'll be that one. It'll definitely be that one.
Look at the mask.
Yeah.
Microscope. Mask.
All right. I'll take my black light before I buy it. So the next one is also from me. What's the average turnaround time for figures right now? Let's say for 4 common figures, standard acrylic, no special circumstances?
So right now we're at a point, over the last 6 months or so, we've hired a bunch of new guys into our shop and our CNC department and stuff, so it's trying to, like you said earlier, turnaround time has been huge for every grading company, no matter what it is. And, it's a struggle to get back on track, when the volumes are so high, so right now, what we call our tier 1 items, carded figures, boxed items, loose Star Wars, loose single figures from other lines, simple Joes, that kind of stuff. We're in right 4 to 6 months right now.
Okay.
A few that go, or if it's like a big order and we're doing a lot of stuff for somebody, sometimes even a little sooner, quicker than that. That's about our average right now. I'd say average is 5 to 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, that's completely fair. It's completely fair. That's kind of what I was expecting with with asking that question. And then,
well, our goal is to get it down into that 90 to 120 day range.
I think that's your sweet spot. Honestly, I think that's your sweet spot. If you guys can do that consistently, I think you'll see a lot more people grading, and I think you'll see a lot more people sending in figures on a consistent basis.
That send something in, and then they wait till they get their submission back to send another submission in.
Yeah.
So if you submit 4 times a year instead of 3 times a year, it works better for everybody. They get more product, they can sell more, we get more stuff, through the doors. So that's the goal.
Yeah. This one comes from, I think somebody who wanted to stay anonymous, but what's the toughest toy to grade and place into acrylic that you've ever done?
That's easy.
I have a guess, but I'll tell you what I guess honestly. So I want to hear your answer.
So for me, just like from an engineering standpoint and a design standpoint and a shipping standpoint,
can we say it at the same time? To see if I was right. Ready? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. USS flag.
Oh no, the flag.
Oh,
we've never done a flag.
Oh really?
And nor we won't do a loose flag.
Oh, you won't do a loose flag? Oh no, not a loose flag, but a box flag even, because I bet that would be hard to engineer also.
I've done a half a dozen of them.
Really?
And they're not. The issue with the flag is it's a 2-man job. You know what I mean? You can't pick cases up by itself. You can't glue it. You can't maneuver it. You can't do the finish work. You can't photograph it by yourself. So it becomes a 2-man job. The Defiant is actually a little harder than the flag because it's tall.
So that was because I was talking over you. So it's the Defiant is the one that you just answered, right?
It's a loose AT-AT walker.
I can see the pain in your face when you're talking about about the Defiant.
I don't ever want to do another one.
That's funny.
Took it off, and we're not actually accepting submissions on those.
Yeah. So here is the question that I see a lot. When people say that grading is a scam, what do you say to them?
Well, I mean, everybody's got an opinion. There's people that are pro grading and there's people that are anti grading. It's just, and it's in every industry. It's in comics, it's in coins, it's across the board, So when somebody's, 45 years old and says you shouldn't grade a toy and case it up because I can't play with it anymore, it kind of becomes an invalid argument almost. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with whether you can play with it or not. I mean, it's always about preservation. And one of the things when we started the company was preservation. Mm-hmm. It's part of what we do. And it's, keeping this stuff for generations in the future to admire and to look at. It's not necessarily about the flip. We have a lot of customers that are, just sentimental. These were mine when I was a kid. I want to leave them for my kids. I don't want them to get, any worse condition than what they're in, and then of course there's flippers, and it's a monetary thing 100%. But, is it a scam? No, I don't think it's a scam. We have a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge, a lot of people involved that, live and breathe this stuff to put this stuff together. And the common thing is the preservation, so.
Yeah. When I look at the toy landscape or the collecting landscape in general, I like to think of it as it's mini economics, it's a mini economic kind of community. So if people didn't want to collect graded, they would let the companies know. They would let other collectors know that no, I have no desire to collect this. I have no desire to pay the number that you're asking me. But people do. And that's the rule of economics. It's if it's there and it's available, people are going to buy it. So I think that us collectors dictate the market of what is going to be bought and sold. You know, just like, and I'm a proponent of you collect the way you want to collect. If you want to collect loose. I'm a proponent of I want to experience kind of everything in collecting, right? And that's why I did get into grading, and that's why we're talking here right now, is because I was genuinely curious about grading, the ins and outs, and especially the microeconomics of collecting. You know, if I don't want to buy something, I'm not going to buy it. That's my personal choice. And you get enough of those numbers and it will dictate in the market, well, this is popular and this is not. We should stop doing this, or we should keep doing this, you know?
Yeah, but it's kind of like, you don't like what's on the radio, turn the channel too, you know?
Right.
If you're not that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Why go after the people that do? It doesn't make sense to me sometimes, but you know, everybody can have an opinion like that. It's fine.
Yeah. And that's what I love. Everyone can and does have their opinion, which is great. And that's what I think keeps any hobby going, is that, you know, the opinions kind of channel the way that the hobby's going to go, you know?
Well, it's like you said, collectors actually are why the grading companies are here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're the ones driving it. So it's not grading as a scam. I mean, I guess you could look at it and say maybe the whole collecting industry is a scam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at that, you know, we're providing a service that helps people either monetarily or personally, or again, preservation, you know?
Yeah, that's a good thought. That's a good thought is, yeah, we're driving everything. You know, we're dictating what.
I mean, then what grading I wouldn't have a company. So
yeah, that is true. That is true. All right, we're gonna before I let you go, and again, thank you for your time again. Everybody, we're talking to Ken Black, COO of CAS. In case you're tuning in late, last portion is what I like to call remember the 80s. And these are flash questions, all right? Here's the rules. You have 3 seconds. Whatever pops in your brain, just say it, all right? Here we go. We're going to start. Favorite song from the 80s?
Anything Twisted Sister.
I'll take that. Favorite catchphrase?
If you're living on the edge, you're taking up too much space.
Love it.
You're not you're taking up too much space.
This one might be a little bit hard. Favorite smell from the 80s?
Oh, that is a tough one.
Well, let's transition. Let's transit. What'd you say?
I said, is weed okay?
Yeah, of course.
At times.
I mean, the first time I smelled weed was going down Hollywood Boulevard and turning around and saying, "Mommy, what's that smell?" So there you go. Favorite video game of the 80s?
Oh, Zelda.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Celebrity crush. Favorite celebrity crush from the 80s?
Phoebe Cates.
I am team Phoebe Cates too. Movie that scared the bejesus out of you in the 80s?
That one I'd have to say none. There's not a movie out there that scares me.
Hey, it's all good. They were kind of campy anyways, but I know it's not a 70s movie or it's not an 80s movie, but The Exorcist I saw in the 80s that scared the bejesus out of me. Favorite toy from the 80s?
Oh, I mean, I'd have to default to some of the Star Wars when I was little, you know, between my brother and myself. I was at the tail end of Jedi, and, you know, because I was going into junior high school and then into high school. So my younger brother still into it, but just memories of that, you know.
No, you get 1,000,000 points for that. That's the correct answer anyway. That was the only one where there was a wrong answer on that one. That was that one. Star Wars is the answer. On Saturday mornings in the 80s, what are you watching?
Oh man, is this late 70s or early 80s? I forget. But
Hey, we can pull it back to the late 70s.
Banana Splits.
Oh my goodness, where did you pull that out of? That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, all right. Last question before we let you go. What were you wearing in the 80s?
Doc Martens, leather jacket. I actually had a mohawk, purple mohawk.
Oh my God. No, we got to see that picture. We got to see that picture. Ken,
I had the only of that.
I don't think a lot of people remember the 80s as well as they think they do.
We were big, me and my friends, we were big into like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's rad.
You know, that thing in the 80s. I played Rocky in about 180 shows every Friday and Saturday night for almost 2 years.
No way. See, we're learning a lot about you, Ken. We're learning a lot about you.
There's a lot that people don't know.
Well, thanks for allowing us to take up your time and ask these questions that I know a lot of people wanted to know. I know I wanted to know them. Any last comments you want to make or last words?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's been fun. I love talking about this stuff. I don't do it as much. My head's always buried in the weeds, keeping the operation running, keeping all the employees moving. You know, so it's very rare I get to, reach out and do something like this. So I appreciate it too. Thanks, man.
On next week's episode, we're going to have Greg and Gianni from Red 5 Designs. They are going to talk about their new book, but they're going to talk about some new things that nobody has heard yet. So I can't wait to hear that. I kind of know what it is, but I kind of don't know what it is. So I'm interested too. But if you like this episode, please hit that like button. That does support the channel. And if you want to see more content like this, then please subscribe. And if you want to support me on a higher level, then please become a Patreon. You can also become a member right here on YouTube. I thank my YouTube and Patreon supporters. You make these videos possible. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.
If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.